With the release of Squid Game Season 3's official trailer, so much more has been revealed about the possible endings of each character. Alongside a new batch of official photos, it's about time to start predicting the fate of each character and what will truly end up happening with them. So, I've made a tier list of the remaining characters and how likely they are to die. There will be 5 categories: 100% dead, most likely dead, 50-50, will probably live and will live. Not only will I categorize them by their chances of death, I will also try to predict how they will meet their end, since we know a bit more information about the 4th and 5th games. Let's start with none other than the jackass, the absolute moron, the Mr. Irrelevant of Squid Game Season 2, Junho. I cannot stress to you enough the amount of times I've watched the 2nd season and yelled at my screen when this guy was on. Do something, you idiot! I guess Season 2 just wasn't his time to shine. But from the teaser and the trailer, we know that Junho did eventually find the island, infiltrated it for a 2nd time, found the VIP's room, and did something after. Whether he actually saw the VIPs again is still in question, but personally, I don't think he actually did. I think he either arrived too early, meaning before the VIPs arrived on the island, or too late, when the 6th game had already concluded. In Season 3, Junho's team got separated, because in every photo or moment from the teaser and trailer, he was alone. Something happened to the rest of his team, and given the history of Squid Game side characters, they're most likely heading for their ends. The 2 biggest questions we must ask relating to Junho's survival chances are, will he find his brother again on the island? And does he team up with No Yugo and maybe player 246 when re-infiltrating the island? Because that's the perfect way to do it. No Yo has been working there for 7 years and knows the place inside out. We already know that inside the island the routes are extremely complex, and that's exactly part of the reason why Gi-hun's rebellion failed. Having inside knowledge of the island's layout would be crucial to Junho, and potentially his team's success in finding the VIPs and defeating the armada of guards. But given his background in policing and the fact that he's ultimately not a player, I'm giving him decent chances as Season 3, which is why he'll go in the will probably live tier. However, at the end of the day, no one should be surprised if he does ultimately fail and die in either the hands of the guards or the VIP, because there's simply no way the frontman could kill Junho himself. Or do you think he'll sacrifice himself for Inho or for something or someone else? Sticking with Junho's team, we have a horse mask guy. He's important to the team for recruiting the mercenaries, but characteristically speaking, he's not much different than someone like Minsu, maybe just a little taller and more manly. I initially wanted to put him in the most likely dead tier, but given that he's not really a mercenary and probably won't be stepping foot on the actual island or going on operations with the mercs, he'll be in less danger in Season 3. I'm putting this guy's chances in the 50-50 because he either gets killed by Captain Park on the boat, or in Junho's operation, or he lives until the end. But who really cares anyways? I could see one scenario where Junho and the rest of his team moved out to attack the island while Captain Park and this guy stays back, which leads to Captain Park killing him and escaping with the boat, leaving Junho and the rest of his guys trapped on the island. Just saying, it's a possibility. Captain Park is definitely nobody's favorite character, but he could play a more pivotal role in Season 3 than simply giving us a weather report. We know from Episode 7 of Season 2 that Captain Park is indeed a traitor, but not one person on Junho's team knows. Now that the drone pilot is dead, and the drone is broken, Junho is bound to be suspicious of someone as an insider on the boat. But will he catch on to the fact that it was Captain Park? Because if not, the whole team would be in shambles. If Captain Park can turn on the entire team at the perfect moment, let's say after they split, he could cause some serious damage, but even if he's in communication with the front man, he's out there alone, and the odds are stacked against him no matter what. At the end of the day, why keep a Walmart version of Oh Il Nam alive? He's going into the most likely dead tier for me. Speaking of Operation Infiltrate Island, this next one is interesting, the Black Officer. This is the character that I probably have the least information to go off on, simply because he had a total screen time of like 7 minutes in the entirety of Season 2. But with the frontman back in action, what will be his role in the games besides organizing the organ trafficking system? There's one picture in the teaser that points towards a potential deadly ending for the Black Officer. A photo of No Ul intensely watching his eyes. In my opinion, the only reason this character even exists is for No Ul to kill him and overthrow the organ trafficking system in Season 3. If No Dayul somehow manages to trick him into getting in a certain restricted area, she could conduct her plan and kill the Black Officer before she escapes. As we know, their relationship over the past 7 years haven't been great. Although he assumes a mentor relationship to her, No Yul wasn't usually the most behaved, because of the fact that the Black Officer had virtually zero interaction with anybody else other than No Yul. It's almost guaranteed that she would be the one to deliver the final blow to him. Therefore, I'm putting him in the most likely dead tier, as his chances of death are quite high, but not 100%. After Season 2, No Yule's plan of escaping and helping player 246 and make it outside is one of the most interesting storylines outside the games themselves. We saw her in multiple places where she definitely shouldn't be as a regular triangle guard. The frontman's chambers, the organic trafficking rooms, air vents, and of course outside. All these places suggest that she took them down one by one, but I think in two different time frames. The organ trafficking system and the air vents before she made it outside, and the frontman's chambers after she came back in. Why do I think she re-infiltrated the island, you ask? Well, we know that she will team up with Junho once she gets out, and with renewed energy she will find her way back, because what's the point of her staying outside while Junho or him and his team infiltrate the rooms? She's essential for their plan to succeed, but as soon as she sets foot inside again, she becomes a prime target, maybe even more so than Junho. Don't forget the square guard that got blasted by his subordinates because he was distracted by the front man. Okay, not for that, but come on, don't say you weren't distracted by him. Odds are, once she re-enters the island, she doesn't make it out, landing her in the most likely dead tier, which sucks because 1, I love her, and 2, I wanted her to adopt Gyeong-suk's daughter if he doesn't make it out. They really would make a great mother-daughter duo, considering Noyeol's background. Actually, is Gyeong-suk divorced? Because I take that sentence back if he isn't. Speaking of player 246, believe me when I say the future of Gyeong-suk really confuses me, because we know he's alive, but the game organizers don't. The players don't. Only No Yule knows he's alive, assuming she was the triangle guard that shot her, which means he's a living player who will not participate in the games, which directly violates the consent form. Given the fact that on that island there's a camera every 2 steps you take, his life is solely dependent on No Yule. Personally, though I think Gyeong-suk fits right into the 50-50 tier. The reason is because he's already injured in his left leg, which drastically reduces his mobility if No Yule has any plans to get him to escape with her. There's 2 ways this plays out. 1, No Yule helps him disguise as a guard, gets them outside and meets Junho, then re-infiltrates the island and beats the guards. Or 2, his injury is too unsustainable, and he dies in the process of trying to get out with her. Now there's a third possibility where he just straight up gets eliminated by another guard, when No Yule simply wasn't there to watch him, but I don't think this is too realistic considering the importance of Gyeong-suk and the inclusion of his daughter in Season 2. I swear to God, if Gyeong-suk does not return and meet his daughter, I'm putting a fist through my monitor. What do you guys think will happen to his daughter if he dies? Do you think No Yule will adopt her in an attempt to treat her like how she will for her almost lost daughter if she lives? It's an interesting theory. Moving back to the actual players who will be playing the games, we have 2 of our favorite characters, Player 100 and Player 226. How will the Player 226 die? Hyunju beat the absolute crap out of him during the 4th game. We know that Director Hwang loves to use foreshadowing, and during the argument between Daeho and this guy before the bathroom fight, he said, "Okay, let's just play one more game and see who dies." This paired with him getting thrown by Hyunju in the 4th game can only suggest that he meets his end in the maze. Finally this guy stinks. But you know who stinks more than anyone? Player 100. It's not about if he will die, it's about how he will die. We know that he makes it to the 5th game, but it'd be interesting if he actually doesn't die during the game, and is instead killed before the 6th game. It'd really just be incredibly funny to see him vote 0-1 last time as a finalist, then die in a way similar to Saebyok. I'm not comparing the 2 characters, Saebyok does not deserve it, but if Player 100 somehow makes it out of Squid Game Season 3 alive, you have my permission to unsubscribe to the channel. Minsu is an extremely controversial character on all social media platforms. It's almost an exact 50-50. Half the people like Minsu, and value his feelings of fear and anxiety, while the other half demoralizes through his cowardness, weakness, and stupidity. We saw a bit of both in the teasers. One photo of Minsu, with an O patch on his chest, meaning he survived Game 4 and then switched his vote from X to O, and another shot of him being super scared, hiding in a corner, begging for the person in front of him to spare him. What's really shocking to me is his change of mindset between Games 4 and 5. During Game 4, he still seems to be his old self, but after Game 4, he suddenly votes O and seems much more confident and maybe even a bit of anger. What could have led to this? My far-fetched theory is that he saw someone getting killed during Game 4 because of their fear of the other player, and it led to Minsu realizing the fact that he stands no chance if his feelings continue to loom over him. He then goes on a complete revenge arc starting during the 4th game, and spins totally out of control and stops at nothing to become one of the final winners of the game, because he has nothing outside of the games to live for, kind of in a similar situation, like player 240 from Season 1 or Ji Jeong. This definitely explains why he switched his vote from X to O, but it could very soon lead to him picking a fight under a circumstance where he's not poised to win, but he no longer can control himself, and dies in the hands of another player, possibly Namgyu. Or it could lead him to dying in the 5th game, because the rope and the narrow bridge seems a little too much for Minsu. I did not pay attention to Minsu too much in Season 2, because I was on the side of the audience that portrayed him as a weak player, and I disliked him for it. But perhaps his storyline would be one of the most interesting in Season 3. Let me know your predictions below, but I think Minsu is completely cooked no matter what. We all know that Namgyu is destined to die in Season 3, but there's a million potential ways for him to go, and every which way feels more and less satisfying than the other choices. First, we cannot rule out the possibility of an overdose on Thanos' drugs. He now has all the remaining drugs from Thanos and could easily OD on them, but nothing in the teasers point to this. Another possibility would be him being killed by another player outside of a game. Let's say by MG Coin Gihun, or even Junhee or Geumja. At this point, Namgyu is on his own after killing Sammy, losing Thanos and ditching Minsu. He's someone who preys on the weak but falls in front of the strong. And since we know he makes it through the 4th game, it's most likely that he'll become one of the finalists because it just doesn't fit. That he dies by losing a game, he truly deserves a death much, much more cruel than falling from a narrow bridge down 10 stories. Someone who definitely added a dramatic twist simply with her presence in Season 2 had to be the shaman. Does anybody actually like this character? Well, unless you're a shaman yourself, you shouldn't be surprised that this character will meet her end in Season 3, which she's got some advantages on her side though. She's seemingly gathered a group of followers before the start of the 4th game, and can use them as human shields in case she comes within danger, either during the game or during the times they stay at the dorms. Who knows, another fight might break out because the O's will increasingly get more and more hungry for money that they might start killing each other. Like Chungbai said, this place makes everyone go crazy. Using her unparalleled prediction power, we saw multiple scenes where the shaman is making a decision on which direction to go in the maze. But there's one particular scene during the trailer that caught my eye, where she was banging on a wall, seemingly panicked, like someone was trying to kill her in that moment. Is this because her deduction skills led her astray into the wrong room, where she thought would be the safe room, but was actually a dead end? Or was she working with her followers and they betrayed her in the process? Either way, I think the shaman will make it through the 4th game despite this chilling scene, because I think someone like her deserves a more cruel, perhaps more sentimental ending, one I would hope she doesn't see or feel coming her way. Maybe at some point she and her team become too possessed by her spirits, overwhelmed with confidence, and it blindly leads them to their death. Or maybe something happens to her after Gihun tries to choke her out in the dorms that makes her go crazy and end herself. Whatever way she ends up going in Season 3, I would sure hope that it's something more than just losing a game. What method of death do you guys think the shaman would follow? Let me know in the comments. The next string of characters come from our main cast, characters that I'd shed tears after their death, starting with Young-sik, an immature gambler who voted to continue to play the game despite his mother still being in the games in Episode 5 of Season 2. There's an interesting observation being enlarged from the teasers. Young-sik initially started on the blue team, but is seen wearing a red team jersey in the middle of the 4th game. Did he switch teams with her mother? If so, why? What happens if they meet each other in Game 4? If his mother gave him the knife, would he use it to kill himself in order for his mother to move on? It's quite ironic that all the evidence pointing to his death is from his mother, not him. We see Geumja during the initial teaser, hair down, crying at a level that we've never seen before. That could only mean the death of her closet, her son. What will she do without her son in the games? We know that she used her hairpin knife at some point before the end of Game 4. Since she started on the red team, it could mean that she gave her knife to her son as a secret weapon for him to gain an upper hand, or she could have kept it herself considering her physical disadvantage. However, I think this is unlikely. She's stated multiple times throughout the course of Season 2 that she cares more about her son than herself. If she does give that knife to him and makes it through the 4th game, what will happen then? How will she survive the jump rope? Another critical detail that cannot be dismissed is that prior to the rebellion she was still happy when trying to convince the other side with her son. But it seems that this time something traumatic happened to her, as she's practically begging the players to consider her statement, just perhaps due to the death of her son. This will no doubt become the biggest factor of her death. as her spirit would be completely shattered, and she might very well meet the same end as the husband from Season 1. One of two outcomes will occur in my opinion. She ends her own life after her son's death, and coming to terms that Team X lost the vote, or she will die during Jump Rope. My sincerest apologies to all Squid Game fans. She ain't making it out of this one. Daeho is perhaps the most interesting player of all to me. He was never shown during Red Light, Green Light. He suffers from child abuse and PTSD, and is only alive because he has an episode and didn't bring back the ammunition. To be fair, even if Daeho did bring back all the ammo, it still probably wouldn't be enough to power through all the guards. They would have still been outnumbered, outgunned, not to mention the frontman was there too. I don't know how he'll deal with the death of Jungbae, the next conversation he'll have with Gi-hun, and the cruel reality of the next game after the Oz win the vote yet again, but I do know he must channel his inner Class 1140, sir, in order to have any chance of moving forward. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll make it past Game 4. In the trailer scene where Daeho looks down from the upper floor, his eyes filled with fear could point to a potential suicide by jumping down because he did not find a safe room in time. However, I don't think he'll take his own life. I believe he'll try to the best of his ability in Game 4, but ultimately is unsuccessful in reaching a safe room, either meeting someone on the red team who's physically stronger than him, or too paralyzed by the actions that occurred during the rebellion, preventing him from focusing to find the way out. Another interesting theory here is that during that scene where he looks over the edge down, he says, "I'll help you." Who is he helping, and will it cost his life? Pair this with the fact that he was never shown in any teasers past Game 4. I believe the road ends for Daeho in the maze, but there's always a chance that a character like him will make it through the end. He's one of the most, if not the most debated player online, and I know lots of you are die-hard Daeho fans, so what do you guys think will be the ultimate ending for him? Let us know in the comments below. Hyunju is somewhat quiet during the initial stages of the games, helping Gi-hun temporarily save player 444 during Red Light, Green Light, but her character was always there to save others. In the fourth round of Mingle, where 6 players were required to be in a room, she was the only one to pull out of the doorway, when realizing there was already a group of 6 in the room, practically saving everyone but young me. During the 6-legged pentathlon, if she didn't slap some sense into the shaman, they would all already be organ donors. During the rebellion, she practically solo carried the rest of the team, and as soon as she left, the rest of the team was cooked. But the truth is, there are 3 more games to go. It doesn't matter that you made it this far. What matters is winning the next 3 games. But it would be terribly tragic for her to lose one of the games and die because of it. She's already shown so much that I don't think a game could mean the end for her. We already know from the trailer that she found a safe room inside the maze with her key and moved on to the 5th game, but honestly, a little jump rope is nothing for the former sergeant of the ROK Special Forces, right? I predict that with the re-infiltration of the island by Junho and No-Will, a disturbance would naturally follow. All guards would be called to respond to the situation, leaving Hyunju, with her MP5, a chance to lead a second rebellion, perhaps after the 4th vote, and before the 5th game starts. It's also possible for her and Gi-hun to lead another rebellion after the 5th game, but usually the guards come clear at the dorm during the 5th game, so it's unlikely. I really hope she doesn't die from losing the jump rope game or whatever the 6th game will be. I hope she goes out with a bang by either sacrificing herself for another player or multiple players. Up next is my personal favorite character, Kim Jun-hee. She's perhaps in the most difficult situation out of all the players. Around 7 months pregnant under extreme stress, terrible environment, while guys like Namgyu are trying to hunt her down. Not to mention that the 4th and 5th game are extremely physical. Heck, when was the last time you saw any 7-month pregnant lady jump in real life or in any TV show, movie? I bet it's been a really, really long time. We know that she made it through the 4th game, but it's interesting that she started on the red team and during the middle of the game she was wearing a blue jacket. It could be the fact that MG Coin swapped teams with her after he got a key to ensure that she can make it through the next game, because I do not expect her to win any 1 versus 1 combat with a single other player still remaining in the game, except Minsu, of course. But even after she makes it through the 4th game, how can we expect her to make it through the 5th? How does she possibly get through the 5th game? She simply can't. But is that really where the road ends for her? What about the baby? Well, from the trailer, we can depict that she's still pregnant before Game 5 when MG Coin yells at her, "We have to get out of here and live!" So does that mean she somehow made it through the 5th game? I don't think so. During the official trailer, we see Jun-hee sitting on a chair looking hopelessly at Myung-gi when he says, What are you going to do? Just sit here and die? It would be terrifying if she's already given up after hearing that the 5th game is jump ropes. However, if she's somehow a finalist, that means there must be at least 2 others that voted O, because she and Gi-hun would vote X, which means there are at least 4 players before the start of the 6th game, and she gives birth then after the extreme stress of jump rope. What happens after she gives birth? Clearly, she can no longer continue the games, which directly violates the consent form. Therefore, she must be eliminated, right? Well, my theory is that the frontman personally steps in for this particular situation, unauthorized by the VIPs, but from his own heart. We know that Inho's weak spot is his wife, and how she was pregnant when she was diagnosed with terminal illness, and seeing the state that Junhee's in, giving birth in such a horrendous environment without a hospital to take care of herself and her baby, Inho breaks his own rules of equality and personally temporarily takes care of Junhee before she ultimately succumbs to the final game. Another theory I have is that she is cold-blooded, brutally murdered by Namgyu as a moment for connection to the real world, where pregnant mothers are receiving insufficient help from communities. Even though she still has people like Gumja, Daeho, MG Coin, and Gi-hun on her side, they're not playing the games for her, which leaves her odds of survival at practically 0. However, I'm holding on the tiniest of hope for her, because if she dies, I don't think I can recover for the rest of the summer. The ultimate question becomes, will the amazing Myung-gi sacrifice himself for his girlfriend? Well, there's evidence to suggest both yes and no. He truly cares about her and loves her. While he was on the run, he chose to remain hidden from her as a way to protect her. It wasn't what either of them wanted, but it had to be done. In the games, as soon as he realized that Junhee wanted to get out, he immediately switched his vote to X, even though at that point, the money wouldn't even cover a quarter of his debt. During Mingle, he saved her twice. Once by rushing into the room with 1 second left during the round of 6, and then again by immediately grabbing her and running to the nearest room during the round of 2. He respected Junhee's decision of not wanting him to join the rebellion, but ultimately, is it enough to push him through in that split-second decision of him saving her? What if the sight of Junhee dying shocks him and he can't save her in time? Or what if his fear prevents him, making him switch his vote back to O after realizing there's nothing else to live for besides more money? On top of every odd stacked against him in the games themselves, he also bears the burden of saving Junhee. What if he makes a really stupid decision, as stated by his actor Yim Soo-won? On top of every odd stacked against him in the games themselves, he also bears the burden of saving Junhee. Director Hwang stated that Myung-gi undergoes a drastic change in Season 3, maybe perhaps for the dark side, for that mindset of thirst, just like how he was before he entered the game, gambling with digital investments like nothing depended on it. Both Junhee and him are alive before Game 5, but what happens after that? Every turn, every movement could so easily mean death, and it just shows how cruel and dark the games truly are. Although the odds aren't good, I do think that Myung-gi has the highest chance of making it out of the games purely based on his intelligence, like Sang-woo in Season 1. Finally, the main protagonist and the main antagonist. I'll actually talk about these two together. The clash of ideologies between Gi-hun and the frontman is the foundation of which Squid Game is based on. Hope for humanity versus cruelty in modern society. The problem for Gi-hun is he's out of tricks. He's been stuck in the island without his tracker, the rebellion has failed, he's lost Jung-bae, and most importantly, in contrast to his thinking, there are lots more people voting O despite his, "I've played these games before." Okay, that meme's a little old, but still. On the flip side, the frontman holds all the face cards. Let's not forget that the reason the frontman decided to fake players 001 as Young-il was to understand Gi-hun's ideas, the thoughts that motivated him to turn back in the airport, spending all the time, money, and resources to track down the salesman, and ultimately returning to the game himself, while sacrificing a beautiful life overseas, where he's also closer to his daughter. But I have to ask, how did Gi-hun not become suspicious of the frontman? I mean, the player number was the same as the creator from Season 1, and he said his name without you telling him. And for what? Beating up Thanos in front of everybody and killing his own guard to save his life? The frontman has been the main character this entire game, torturing Gi-hun in the games and throwing balls of emotional damage, insert Steven E. Memes, at him without him even realizing. Gi-hun still thinks that Young-il is dead, but in reality, he's being toyed with. One interesting observation I noticed throughout Season 2 is the fact that Inho was almost always staring at Gi-hun, no matter what the circumstance was. He's trying to get into his head while playing 3 characters simultaneously, Young-il, Inho, and the frontman, and Gi-hun simply trusted him because he protected him from player 100's scornful insults. We know from the trailer that Gi-hun makes it to the final game, but him having the fancy dinner means that even after the 5th game, the majority of players still decided to vote to continue. A few possibilities are still on the table at this point. Game 6 gets stopped prematurely as Junho infiltrates the island for a second time, bringing the frontman's operation and the joy of the VIPs to an end, while liberating Gi-hun and the rest of the players. But how does that explain the meeting between Gi-hun and the frontman? In the trailer, we see the frontman coldly takes off his mask and reveals himself to Gi-hun, then asks with authority, power, and knowledge, "Do you still have faith in people?" His use of the word "still" could imply that the Elms have already fully concluded, and Gi-hun was the sole winner for a second time. However, this is extremely unlikely to happen, as we know director Hwang Dong-hyuk has implicitly stated that he hates repetition of results. That brings us to another possible outcome. Game 6 is fully played out, but this time, there are multiple winners. Gi-hun was simply the only one brought up to the frontman's chambers to be confronted, given his history of rebellion and the conflict of ideas between the two, which is exactly the main point that the plot revolves around in Squid Game Seasons 2 and 3. Either way, we can expect the meeting between Gi-hun and the frontman towards the later end of the season. We see Gi-hun in a lot of emotional pain during the entirety of Season 3, from him repeatedly asking the guards, "Why did you let me live?" We also saw scenes of him moving away from his kind-hearted ideologies by trying to choke the shaman lady, while just before the rebellion he physically stopped player 047 from gunning down all of the O voters. His character transformation will guide the events of Season 3 step by step, but ultimately, it's still a 50-50 chance between him living and dying. We saw multiple times during Season 2, the shaman's prophecies pointed out that Gi-hun shouldn't be alive, that he's here for a particular reason, maybe even for player 222's baby, but who knows if any of that is true just because she accurately predicted Young Mi's death during Mingle. If Gi-hun really dies and does not make it out of the island, what will happen to his daughter? Will we get a glimpse of Sang-woo's mom and Se-byok's brother receiving the news of Gi-hun's death? If there even will be any? What's Junho, the rest of his team, and No Yule's part in all of this? The bottom line is, Squid Game Season 3 will be a brutal season, which immediately puts the odds against everybody. But perhaps due to his thick and juicy plot armor, Gi-hun will have the best chances. As for the frontman, who's gonna touch him really? The only thing he could potentially die from is if Gi-hun somehow kills him in his chambers. But who's really gonna believe that? Do we really believe that Junho will kill his own brother after not ratting him out to Gi-hun? Will the black officer become too hungry for power and try to undermine the frontman for his position? At first I was so sure the frontman would die. I mean, how could he not pay for his crimes? But then I remembered that Squid Game is a show that demonstrates the real-life problems of our society. And when do the frontmen of our world get punished through death for their actions? The wealth gap is increasing globally. More and more people are living in the economic hardship. And social ideologies have made our communities more divided than ever before. This is all shown through Squid Game, especially through the O and X voting system. And the players are all so worried about fighting each other that they forget who's at the top. Speaking of who's really at the top, the frontman is essentially trapped between the players and the VIPs. Not on the same level as neither, having powers and yet restricted at the same time. The life of the frontman depends on the outcome of the season, whether the game gets overthrown or it doesn't. If it does, he will die. If it doesn't, he will live. It's purely a 50-50. But as we've seen in TV shows, movies, short films, that good always wins. But in Squid Game, it might just be otherwise. And there's just one last detail though, which is the frontman crying during the trailer. What's exactly making him do that? He's not a person that strikes me as someone who would cry, as he didn't even do that after he shot his own brother. Could it be him seeing Junhee give birth and dying after that, as it relates to his late wife whom he couldn't treat her illness even after winning the games? I don't think the scene of him crying actually relates to his chances of survival, and I certainly don't think he'll be sacrificing himself for anyone or anything. There's one last key detail. In an actor reaction video posted on Still Watching Netflix on YouTube, the actor of the frontman stated that Inho disagrees with Gi-hun's ideologies, but he sees himself through Gi-hun, and although he joined the games to undermine Gi-hun's spirit, deep down, he's still got just a sliver of humanity inside him, and perhaps even rooting for Gi-hun in some way. When you relate these words back to the scene where Gi-hun sees his face when he reveals himself, all the questions begin to emerge from your head. Will Gi-hun try to kill him or reason with him? Will the frontman have a change of heart at the end of Season 3? If so, how will Gi-hun react to it, especially after Jung-bae's death? Some of you may be wondering at this point, wow, there's no one in the will live tier? Yup, absolutely nobody. besides you, the lovely viewer. I mean, come on. Did any of you really expect any characters to have a 100% chance of getting out of Squid Game? Season 3 will be the most brutal season yet, as mentioned many times by director Hwang Dong-hyuk in many interviews, so don't expect the majority of characters to live until the end. The 4th game is a maze where you have to fight your way out against other desperate people, in more debt than you. If you make it out of there somehow, you gotta jump over a swinging rope on a narrow bridge while there are dead bodies 10 stories below you. You're constantly reminding you that even if you slip up just one bit, you'll be knocking on heaven's door. Or hell, if you're player 100 or 044. Oh, and that's not to mention that the players are completely exhausted at this point. Just imagine the smell in the player's hall, a combination of sweat and blood, tears, bacteria, gunpowder, and freaking dead bodies. So yeah, there's nobody in the Will Live tier. And with that, we've made it to the end of the video. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and you can get even more hyped for Season 3 by watching my full recap videos on Season 1 and 2.